Hi, I'm Kathleen Murphy, and welcome to Murf+E Unfiltered, Zero BS Biz Talk. I'm here today with my host, Eliot Grossman. How are you, Eliot?
I am doing great, Murph. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I
How
think,
was your long weekend? Good?
yes, I did, and I think we're finally feeling some summer weather here in the Boston area, so I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
So today we have a great show. It's something that everyone needs to do, and something that you and I have been doing for years independently,
hmm
and then of course together. So getting right into this, what is this topic that I'm queuing up right now? It is about networking and the fact that everybody needs to network.
hmm
And today we're going to talk about how to develop your professional network. So I'm going to read a brief overview about this topic, and then we'll launch into our show.
Let's do it.
Excellent. So developing your professional network takes time and effort. It can also be tremendously fun to do. And the people and the relationships you develop will help you in ways beyond how you might imagine they could. This week's episode will give you insight into how Ellie and me have developed our professional networks. So one of the things that oftentimes you'll hear a reference to is someone might say, "How's your network?" And they're not talking about your computer network. We're talking about your professional network of who you know, who you met. And there's this saying that used to really bug me. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And when I first heard this, it used to really irk me because I thought, what does that really mean? But the more experience that I obtained in my career, I realized that there's really some merit to this particular statement. And so that's a little bit about a hint as to one of the things that we're going to be focusing in on today. So then we're also going to be talking about how you don't necessarily have to be constantly thinking about developing your network. It should be something that you kind of organically are working on.
hmm
And so we'll talk about how you can go about doing that as well. And then, Elliot, I'm going to toss out a few questions that I'd like you to respond to, and then I'll respond in course back to what these questions are. But the first question that I have for you is, did somebody tell you about the importance of developing your network, particularly when you were first starting out in the workplace? And then, when did you realize the importance of developing the professional network that somebody said, Elliot, you should be developing your personal network or in professional network?
Yeah. To respond to the first part of that question, no one really told me about that, right? When I started out, I'm so old, Murph. I was trying to network with Fred Flintstone, right? So no, nobody told me about those things. And when you're young and you're green and you're out in the sales world, you just kind of have blinders on. You focus. You're knocking on doors. You're making cold calls. You're doing what you have to do, but you don't think of how important it is. Even the no's you're getting or the meetings that you're getting, how important it is to continue to connect. Well, I think it's much easier nowadays than it was back when you and I started out.
I
Um,
agree.
so it took me some time, took me a year, couple of years to realize, man, this is a really tight knit group industry that I'm in. And as you know, it's somewhat incestuous in every industry you go into. It doesn't matter if you're in the food industry, the software industry, wherever you may be, everybody seems to know someone who knows that person who knows that person. And you didn't need LinkedIn to be able to identify, man, these are small networks that we're in.
That's
So I started realizing it, early on when I just out of the blue just started saying, hey, do you happen to know Chef Rick from the Hilton? I'm just making something up here, but that was the industry I was in long time ago. And they said, oh, absolutely. Rick and I went to Johnston and Wales together. Well,
right.
now all of a sudden, I'm starting to develop a network, and I'm like, well, if I could use Rick to go close this deal as a referral, now I'm starting to develop something. So the light bulb kind of went off. What about you?
So I don't remember any specific point in time when somebody said that this was something that I should be doing. But as a extrovert, for me, it just, I think, came naturally to me to start building upon the people that I would meet in various different locations, whether they were at work and people I was networking there with, or whether there are opportunities if I ever had a chance to get out and travel. Especially earlier in my career, I didn't travel as much, but later on in my career, I did a tremendous amount of traveling. And that's precisely when I started to see my network, especially increase in size. But there wasn't that moment when someone said that I should do this. It was just something that I thought maybe it would be a good idea. And after I had subscribed to the fact that there was that saying, it's not what you know, but who you know, it started to resonate with me. And then I started to take that a little bit more seriously.
Mhm.
About a decade ago, I read a book called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And the concept of this book I really liked. And it was something that everyone on the marketing team that I was on at that particular time read. And we all had to respond back in a little in-house book club what we liked about the book. But it really resonated with me because I liked the concept, which was to take advantage at all times of all the opportunities that you have to have a meal
Mhm.
or a beverage with somebody, regardless of where you are, whether it's in your hometown, whether it's in the town where you work, or especially when you're traveling, to queue up with people and to seek out opportunities to meet with them and to have a meal with them. And the intent was, this was one of the ways that you can go about developing your network or keeping your network alive. And then the other thing that's important to mention here is that people may not take this into consideration, but keeping your network alive also affords you a lot of other opportunities for not only advancement in your career, but in the case of potentially if you want to shift industries. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because you've had that particular experience
Sure.
when this came into play. So talk to me a little bit about the experience that you had when in fact you leveraged this concept of your network to industries, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, well, just actually to backtrack on one of the great things you just said, when you're traveling, had spoken about this in the past, you and I, there's not a better place in the world, in my opinion, in the business world, to network than a hotel bar,
I
right?
agree.
You're
I
tired,
agree.
you go upstairs, you get changed after a long day of meetings, whatever, you come downstairs, and you're like, man, I just want to have a drink. And then you end up having a couple of drinks and meeting a variety of people from so many industries, but inevitably, someone always knows somebody. It
Sure.
doesn't matter where you're from, somebody always knows somebody from a state, an industry, wherever you may be. So it's kind of crazy, that small world. You always hear people say, God, it's a small world. Well, it really is a small world.
Sure.
And that's why networking is so important to continue to build. So navigating through different industries, it was challenging. So you certainly helped me in the last part, the last industry that I moved into. But it was, I've been in 3 industries basically: the software world, food, 4 industries in my career, which is a lot for a lot of people. But it was easy enough to go from 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
3 to 4 has been a challenge. And you were smart enough to say, well, you've gotten a little bit older, you're a little bit wiser. Let's do something to make your network appreciate who you are and what you've done. So recording the videos, introductions, those types of things, and sending them out to people within my network, not just the industry that I'm trying to get into, but other industries as well. And it really has made a huge difference in kind of navigating my way through and have people pass me along. What about yourself?
So I love the fact you brought up the concept of developing those videos for people, because it just helps to personalize what can be such an impersonalized world. And right now, what we're doing is exactly how you practiced with me. And then you recorded simply on your phone those particular video introductions that you leverage to switch industries and to meet a number of different people in a way that really made you stand out, which I thought was really fantastic. So for me, I started out in the hardware industry, and it was funny because at the time there was this concept that hardware people couldn't switch into the software industry, which I thought was ridiculous because it's all basically computers, it's zeros and ones and just a product. So, and it's in the IT space. But I did make the transition, and I did so by having people that I knew that were in the software side of the business actually vouch for me that I could switch and come into the software world.
Don't worry, Murf can handle it. Murf can cover hardware and software.
Exactly. And then I made another switch from going from the IT world to becoming a small business owner and entrepreneur. And then I shifted again and became a coach, a Gallup StrengthsFinder coach, as well as a speaking, expert. So I get out there and I do a lot of public speaking, and an author. And so I've morphed into a number of industries like you have, but all the while leveraging my network to help me to do so as I was making those moves. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the fact that it takes a lot of confidence for people to develop their network. And this may not be something, in fact, people always feel like they have lots of. And there are certain times in our career, and maybe even certain times during the day, where we feel like we're more confident than others. And just as something to note, this is something that I help with, and I'm an expert on helping people with every day in terms of gaining and regaining their confidence and having a better understanding of how to leverage their expertise and their talents. But with increased confidence, it definitely is going to allow you to expand your network, because you're not going to be concerned about reaching out to people. And so I want to talk about the fact that it is really important to get out of your comfort zone when you are networking. You brought up the example earlier of being in a bar situation and meeting people. Well, you've got to be a little bit out of your comfort zone to be able to do that, just to talk to anybody.
Of course, alcohol always helps, right?
I think it does. And then expanding your network doesn't always mean that you have to talk to new people. It doesn't have to mean that you have to go and show up at a bar to meet somebody. You can, in fact, expand your network through people that you already know. So, and some of the methods that you can use to expand your network are ones that are in front of us right now, which is our computer. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But what advice would you give to people to make it less intimidating to have them develop their network, especially if they're early on in their career?
Sure, absolutely. I think early on what I realized is I needed to go to, there's so many different networking groups out there now and all of that good stuff to make things available. But early on, I was became a proponent of attending various trade shows, and not just walk through, literally talk to people. Years ago, there used to be so many different meetings as part of these trade shows, and you could jump into 20 different meeting rooms. And as part of that, to be able to go out and reach across the aisle and introduce yourself to the 5 people sitting around you, and they introduce yourself, it becomes one big happy group. You get to know people. That was the easiest and quickest way for me early on. Now I'm still a big proponent of going to trade shows and being part of these groups. But you and I have done this many times in our career. Don't just go and sit and attend. Take charge at a round table and actually host a round table. Absolutely. Or host one of the meetings that it may cost your company a little bit of money to do, but it's going to help you, as you talked about, with confidence, and it's going to make you network. You have no choice but to network that way.
That's absolutely true. One of the other tips that I can share with people as well is most people have at least one hobby. So consider the people that perhaps share that hobby with you, because they can, in fact, be in your network as well. They're going to be so easy to talk to, and you'd be amazed at who you'll meet through those people that have a hobby in common with you.
Hmm.
And another one that I'm going to put in a special plug for, and this wasn't something that I actually leveraged until fairly recently, was to consider joining your local chamber of commerce. Now, I hadn't considered it because I was usually working at a large company, so the type of networking that I was doing required me to really do more networking outside of my local area. But because I now can leverage a lot of the contacts that I have in my local area, the Chamber of Commerce has become a great potential source for me to help me to develop my business. So I encourage people, if they're especially entrepreneurs, to consider taking a look at this as an option. Some of the other tips that I'm going to suggest to people is, and this one really shouldn't be that scary, and it's something that we can all easily do. And it's to invite people through an email, or maybe you could call them up and leave them a voicemail, because chances are you probably get their voicemail. Sometimes, though, they're going to surprise you and they might answer.
That's right.
Be prepared to talk to them potentially. But if you do get them on the phone, tell them that you're calling because you'd like to schedule a very brief call with them. A call that's 5 or 10 minutes in length, and that you're going to have some questions for them because you'd like to try to pick their brain and talk to them and maybe get some tips from them in terms of how to go about networking.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, I would say about 99.99% of the people are going to say, absolutely, I'm happy to help you with that. So definitely take advantage of doing that. And then, like I said, emailing people, that's a really easy one. In addition to using messaging in some of the social networks, whether it be LinkedIn or potentially Facebook, it all depends in terms of how you want to go about communicating with people. But you can send people messages, and they're much more apt to respond to those,
Sure.
sometimes more so than email. If I want to get in touch with somebody really quickly, I'll send them a message through LinkedIn, because you can see if they're online or not. And chances are they generally will respond, especially if you've already developed some kind of a network with them. So be sure to use that as well.
Yep.
And then the other thing that you should be doing is to always be thinking about cultivating your network. I mean, I like to suggest that it's like having a garden, and it's something that you're going to be working on a little bit every single day.
Sure.
So keep that in mind. So what are potentially some other ways that you would consider advising people?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that we're actually talking about this, because just last week, I haven't stopped working since pandemic hit. We've been crazy busy, which is a good thing.
Yes.
However, I had a day or two last week, and because I managed from Vermont down through Western Pennsylvania, I started thinking, man, I need to join. So I joined in every state the various groups within my industry. Every state. I hadn't done it yet. I've been here a year. I hadn't done it yet. Did it every state throughout so 6 New England states: New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania. Joined up, had my company cut checks to all of them. Coincidentally, just today, I got like 10 different emails that were now in these groups. And along with that is the members' phone numbers, emails, or phone numbers when available, emails, the company they work for, the position they're in. I just tease it up right there. And we didn't even discuss this, but for me, this was such a good way to a reminder, like you talked about, the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Well, this is very similar. It's just within your own industry. So for me, it's just a great way to go about it. Every industry has many different groups.
They do. And honestly, I don't think I took advantage of them as much as I should have.
Mm-hmm.
And the older I got, the more I saw the benefit to doing that. And
Sure.
So great suggestion. A couple of the things I want to cover is the fact that if we break down networking in terms of a beginner, somebody that's only been in the workforce maybe about 5 years or so, I want to encourage everybody if you haven't gotten on LinkedIn yet, or if you're just new to working with LinkedIn, it's free. It is one of the best networking business tools out there for you to help expand your network. And I encourage you to learn it, spend maybe, half an hour, dedicate towards that each week to build up your network through LinkedIn. And it's going to help you enormously, especially when you need to tap into your network. And one of the things that you and I have both talked a lot about is we don't want to be relying upon our network when we absolutely need it. So when we lose our job, for example, that's not the time when we want to be, calling up people we've never called up before, although it's perfectly fine to do so. But
yeah, but you don't look, it doesn't make you look very good. Like, hey, I haven't reached out to you in 3 years.
Right.
But now I need you.
Exactly. So if you kind of, loosely keep in touch with people on a regular basis, rotating basis, like I said, go back to that garden analogy, you're sort of always working that particular network, it's going to serve you enormously well. And then for the mid-career people, they've developed probably a lot of relationships with their vendors. So don't overlook your vendors as being part of your network as well. That's a really strong area to make sure that you tap into. And then for those veterans that have been in the workforce for probably 20 plus years, if you haven't, and I've come across people that still haven't gotten onto LinkedIn, it's never too late. I want to say,
sure.
I don't work for LinkedIn. You don't work for LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah, we don't draw a paycheck from LinkedIn.
No, it is just one of the most fabulous tools out there. And then tap into your network also. So again, like I said, we were talking earlier about plugging in and asking when you're on a call, maybe with somebody, or going back and forth with Messenger. Ask people if there's somebody in their network that they think that you should be or could be introduced to, and give them a reason in terms of, I'd like to be introduced to somebody that maybe knows about X, fill in the blank, right?
Yep.
And then
absolutely
help them with guiding you that way. More importantly than anything else that I'm going to say is to have fun with your networking. It shouldn't be a drag. It should be something that you absolutely just don't want to do. Make it fun for yourself.
Sure.
So we're almost wrapping up here, but I wanted to have each one of us give a quick example in terms of maybe a favorite networking story.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. I guess not so much a networking story as much as it is a recommendation. Don't judge people by what they look like, right? Fat, skinny, bald, too much hair, whatever it may be. I think when I was younger, I tend to judge people. I think that's kind of what, as we grow wiser, we look at people differently maybe. I have so many great friends that I've met throughout trade shows and in various areas and various industries that I said, I'll never be friends with that person, or I would never probably work with that person. There was many people that you and I worked together, when we worked together, saying, I don't know. And it turns out I'm still friends with them.
That's
good friends, right? So it's an interesting thing. Don't judge. You never know when you're going to need somebody. And it's okay to become, you don't have to be fast friends, but there's a big difference between fast friends and quality acquaintances. So I would recommend you build up as many quality acquaintances as possible, and don't just call them when you need them.
Great advice. So I want to just plug my particular favorite networking story. So this happened about a week ago, although it really happened about a month ago, where a friend of mine I've known for a really long time reached out to me and said, hey, I have somebody that I'd like to introduce you to. She's a professor at Denver University. I really think the two of you should connect. So I connected with this professor probably about a week after that meeting with my friend. I had a conversation with this professor. She invited me to lecture to her class, and I lectured to her class last week. And it happens to be a class on sports performance psychology, which is an area that I'm specializing in, working with teams.
Right up your alley.
It was absolutely fantastic. So it was because of this opportunity from someone that I've known for a really long time, when I talked to her about 5-6 weeks ago, and she said, Kathy, is there something that I can do for you? And I said, well, I build my business on referrals. Is there anybody that you think I should be talking to or that you should refer me to? So it was because of that ask that she networked me to somebody that she had just recently met, which was the professor.
Yep.
And then it just keeps going. So
isn't that great? Good for you, Murf. That's awesome. I'm sure it was great.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I love lecturing to that class. So we're wrapping up officially now. So I just want to thank you for a fantastic show and let everybody know that we're looking forward to being back again next time with another fantastic topic for you to be enlightened with. And so thank you very much, Eliot.
Thanks, Murf. Great job. And that's you did a great job preparing the notes and all that good stuff. You did a really good job. This was a fun topic.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.